book lovers, it is G-Swizz here, and I'm here today to talk about some of my most anticipated releases of 2023. So this is a 7 on Sunday topic, and I am the host of 7 on Sunday. I will link the Goodreads page down in the description where you can check it out, and you can participate in a topic in the future, or you can suggest a topic. And pretty much I made this a 7 on Sunday topic because I love hyping myself up for books that I'm really excited for and for the new year. I cannot wait for the year that I'm going to have in reading, and I really hope, fingers crossed, that 2023 will be just as good of a reading year as 2022 was for me, if not even better. And so far, 2023 seems to have a good slate in terms of releases. I cannot wait for this year, and I honestly want to be wowed. I'm pretty sure almost all of these are going to be like sequels to some series that I'm very much looking forward to. This is obviously subject to change. I will probably do a few videos like this throughout 2023 like I did with 2022, but right now, as I'm looking at the release schedule of 2023, I see these ones, I recognize these ones, and I want to highlight these ones as I'm talking about them today. So I guess without further ado, let's get straight into the books that at the moment I'm the most excited about for 2023. I'd have to say probably the one that I am like the most hyped up about at the moment is the new Laura Thalassa book. She is releasing a book called Bewitched, which is the first book in a series that takes place in the same world as the Unearthly series and the Bargainer trilogy. The Bargainer trilogy is my favorite series by Laura Thalassa so far. It was my favorite series of 2022. I loved it so much, and so when I heard that Bewitched was coming out, I knew that I had to read this book. I think initially Bewitched was meant to be an independently published book, but I see now every single time I go into Amazon that it is listed as a traditionally published book, so I'm guessing that maybe in Australia / the Commonwealth it might be picked up by a publisher. I don't know if that is the same in all regions. I'm hoping I will see it in bookstores here, because by the sounds of it, I think that it is going to be distributed here locally in Australia. I am definitely 100% mostly excited about it because it takes place within the same world as the Bargainer trilogy. I also plan to read the Unearthly series before going into Bewitched. I just want to read everything that Laura Thalassa puts out. I am planning to read more of her backlist, but this is one of my most anticipated releases of the year for obvious reasons. She is one of my new favorite authors of all time. I will read anything that she puts out. So I'm looking forward to reading some of her backlist in 2023, but also very much looking forward to getting to Bewitched. And the next most anticipated release I have is The Blood Gift, which is the sequel to The Blood Trials. This duology is actually called The Blood Gift duology. I am so looking forward to seeing where this series is gonna go, because the ending of the first book kind of like left on a cliffhanger. There's so much more to explore in the series. Something gets revealed, and it's just an amazing way to end off the first book, but it leaves a lot of questions and a lot of uncertainty for the entire squad. So I'm very much invested in the story, and I really hope that once again this book does not fall under the duology problem. I have talked about the duology problem here a few times on my channel. Sometimes there are duologies and the sequels aren't as good as the first, and they end off kind of like leaving me somewhat disappointed. I am really hoping that The Blood Gift does not disappoint. I am hoping that The Blood Gift is just as well written as the first and leaves me satisfied. I am anticipating it, but I am so nervous about it because it's a duology. I never usually have this problem with any other series types or with standalones. I think I used to be intimidated by standalones, but I have recently become more intimidated by second books in duologies. I am hoping that Annie Davenport will impress me with The Blood Gift. The fact that The Blood Trials was a debut novel, that still blows my mind. It was so well written. I'm really hoping that that momentum has been kept up. Fingers crossed I will enjoy this one. I have high expectations for The Blood Gift. I am planning to reread The Blood Trials this year, so I could either be setting myself up for an amazing binge read, or I could be setting myself up for a disappointment. This all being said, The Blood Trials is an amazing first book in a series, and if you have not yet read it after how many times I've essentially raved about it, what are you doing? Go read it. I mean, you can finish this video, but then go read it after that. And speaking of duologies, at this point, I'm pretty sure the series is a duology. And the series that I am referring to is the Last Finesse Fenestra duology. The second book, This Cursed Light, is coming out this year. This is the sequel to This Vicious Grace. This Vicious Grace made my top 10 books of 2022. I loved the Shatter Me vibes. I loved the fantasy apocalyptic vibes. Everything about the book I absolutely enjoyed, even though it was somewhat of a slow burn. I really appreciate how well written This Vicious Grace was, and I think it was also a debut novel. I honestly don't know what's up with these debut novels, absolutely blowing my mind from the get-go, and me having low expectations for them, but then when I try them out, they're just absolutely amazing. That's how you know that a book has very much surprised you in the best way possible. This Vicious Grace was amazing, but once again, I am very much skeptical because the last Fenestra, I'm pretty sure, is a duology, but I could be wrong. Maybe it might be extended into a trilogy. Who knows? We will see. But what I do know is that at this point, I have a feeling it's a duology, and I am nervous that this might just fall under the duology problem. If so, I don't know. I get nervous about duologies, but we will see. I'm just very much looking forward to This Cursed Light because I love This Vicious Grace so much. I am willing to buy like any edition of it. At the moment, I have a couple editions coming my way in transit. This is so bad. I really should have waited until I read This Cursed Light, but I mean, look at me. I'm a victim of FOMO. And in 2023, Tessa Bailey is also going to be delivering us a new gift. Secretly Yours is coming out, and I'm very much looking forward to it. I mean, I still want to read Tessa Bailey's backlist. I'm looking forward to reading all of her books, but once again, Tessa Bailey is just one of those authors that is an auto-buy author for me. I will pretty much pick up any of their books. They are a comfort author for me as well, and Secretly Yours has kind of been pitched as like her next biggest thing. After the Bellinger Sisters duology, this is going to be another duology or series, I believe. I don't know much about it, but it's a Tessa Bailey novel, so I know it's going to be steamy, it's going to be fun, and it's going to be absolutely romantic. It's probably going to sweep me off my feet. I believe this comes out in February, just in time for Valentine's Day, and oh my goodness, the queens of YA are coming back. We have a continuation to the Cruel Prince series and a continuation to the Shadowhunter Chronicles. First of all, The Stolen Heir. I have been waiting for the sequel for such a long time, actually. When I initially finished The Queen of Nothing, I just thought to myself, no, there has to be a spin-off. We cannot finish now. We need a continuation. We need something. And The Stolen Heir is dropping into the series, and I cannot deal. This book in this series was something I was waiting for an announcement for. We finally got it, and we're gonna get it in 2023 at the beginning of the year. I really hope it does not disappoint. I mean, look, Book of Night was not the best work from Holly Black, but I'm really hoping that now she's back to the series, the momentum will pick up, and fingers crossed, this will make my favorites list, because I have high expectations for The Stolen Heir. And then with Miss Cassandra Clare, we have Chain of Thorns. By the way, this cover is absolutely stunning. Yes, we all want to beat up Grace Blackthorn, like, understandably. I hate that I share a name with Grace Blackthorn. Like, look, I have regrets in my life, and I know that I did not pick my name. My dad picked my name. If there's one time I want to go back in time and tell my dad not to pick my name as Grace, it would be probably right after I read the first two books in this trilogy, because Grace Blackthorn is terrible. Anyway, I'm not looking forward to reading this series because of Grace Blackthorn, but every other character, oh my goodness, I'm so looking forward to revisiting. I've got to reread this series because I love the Last Hours trilogy. This trilogy is probably my favorite trilogy by Cassandra Clare. I loved the Infernal Devices series, but everything can change with Chain of Thorns. Chain of Thorns has the power to make this the worst trilogy from her or the best. No pressure, Cassandra Clare. I really hope that I love Chain of Thorns. If it's not the best book in the series, I really hope that Chain of Thorns makes the series one of my favorites because I love the first two books. The first two books already make it a favorite, but if Chain of Thorns is terrible, I don't know what to do with myself. Like, Chain of Thorns has to be good. I'm begging Cassandra Clare to make Chain of Thorns good and to make sure everyone experiences some sort of happiness. Like, I am concerned about Lucy's safety right now. I need to know what happens with Lucy. I have been anxious for the last, I don't know, 2 years. We'll see how this ends. And the next two most anticipated releases I have to bring up are by Jennifer L. Armentrout. They are continuations of the Blood and Ash and Flesh and Fire series. We have A Soul of Flesh and Blood, which will be Hawke's perspective of the events that happened in Blood and Ash book 1, which is what I needed. I needed that initially. I needed that instantly. I needed Hawke's perspective in book 1 and book 2 and book 3, because as much as, yes, we can see that he is charming and whatnot, I wanted to be inside his head so bad. There was so much that I wanted from Hawke. I was initially somewhat disappointed with him in book 1 at first. I grew to love him as I kept on reading the series, but I wanted to be inside his head when I first read Blood and Ash. And I'm so happy. It is going to give so many answers to the questions that I had been asking. doing? I had been asking so many questions when reading the Blood and Ash series, or at least reading the first couple of books. I wanted to know what he was thinking. At the end of the day, as we continued on with the series, he was harmless, you know, but I really wanted to know what was going on inside his head because, yeah, you know, some people trusted him initially. I did not trust him initially. I was like, you saw. So I want to revisit Blood and Ash by revisiting it in his perspective. I'm very much looking forward to this. Knowing that Jennifer has been planning this makes me so happy because I think that at this point we deserve it. We have Flesh and Fire book 3, which is a fire in the flesh. I cannot wait for Flesh and Fire book 3. I was so nervous after I finished A Light in the Flame. I needed to know whether or not I was going to get book 3 in 2023 or not. I don't think I could bear a delay. Like with Cassandra Clare's series that I just mentioned with The Last Hours, like we had to wait almost 2 years for the final book in the series. I seriously did not want to have to wait 2 years or a year and a half for the final book in the series. I needed to know how the series ends. I need more Sarah and Nyktos because I have mentioned this previously. I am trying not to fall out of love with the Blood and Ash series. I'm really happy that Hawke's POV book is coming out because I don't know if I'm ready for Blood and Ash book 5 at this point, because as much as I want to be, I think in 2023 I kind of need a break from like continuing on with that plot. I need to take a step back. The Flesh and Fire series has become the more superior series to me, so knowing that I will be getting a continuation with the Flesh and Fire series that has honestly made my 2023. I really hope that this series concludes in the most satisfactory way. So getting Hawke's POV book and Flesh and Fire book 3, that has definitely made my 2023. There's also another book that is going to be a part of the Blood and Ash series, but that's more like the world of Blood and Ash and Flesh and Fire and whatnot. I mean, like, I will probably take time to read that, but I'm more excited about the novels that are coming out. I am happy that I don't have to reread The War of Two Queens in 2023, and I can just save my reread for 2024. I think I need some distance from that book. And speaking of series finales that I am so looking forward to, finally, Cherish by Tracy Wolff. If Tracy pushes this book back again, I really don't know what I'm gonna do with myself. I have been waiting for Cherish for such a long time, and I can't deal. I need Cherish. Cherish was meant to come out in 2022. It's coming out in 2023. I honestly cannot wait. This is the 6th and the final book in the Crave series, the series that follows Grace specifically. However, we are going to have a spin-off series in this world that follows a character named Remy, who we meet in Covet. I'm very much looking forward to their series. However, I am going to miss Grace. I love following Grace, and this time I don't have a regret. There's a Grace that I actually love to follow, and the cool thing is her character description resembles me more than Grace Blackthorn does. I like to picture Grace in this series as like a teenage version of me, but also it's mostly because I love Hudson and he's a fictional boyfriend of mine, so like I would self-insert in this case. I love following her. She's just honestly grown so strong within this series. Court and Charm were 2 of my favorite books of last year. They made my top 5 in my top 22. This series is one of my favorite series of all time. Yes, it's a guilty pleasure series, and yes, it is hard to get into, but once you are into it, it is so worth it. Katmere Academy is just one of those settings I love coming back to. It feels like home. This series honestly feels like home. These characters are some of my favorites, and I want to spend more time with the other surrounding characters. I am happy to say goodbye to Grace, or at least following her POV. I don't want to say goodbye to Grace altogether. I mean, Grace is like my fave. I don't necessarily feel like doing so yet in a way because I love Grace and I love Hudson, but I am very much looking forward to revisiting the rest of the series before going into Cherish, and I'm really hoping that Cherish satisfies me. I mean, Court and Charm were 2 strong books. I am really hoping that Tracy kept up the momentum with Cherish, and even though this series is somewhat long and it is dense, I'm kind of happy that I followed these characters for 5 books so far, and I'm so looking forward to following them for a 6th and for potential spin-offs. Anything that Tracy Wolff writes in this world, I will read. I just love the paranormal world that she wrote, and I love Katmere Academy. I reckon that I'm going to cry a lot when reading Cherish. The second last most anticipated release I'm going to mention on this list today is Gold by Raven Kennedy. This is the 5th and most likely final book in the Plated Prisoner series. Now, I had read the first book in the Plated Prisoner series, Guild, and it's not a pretty book whatsoever. It definitely got me very much fascinated in Oren's story because I want to see how she rises up from that. Guild is a very tough book to read. It barely has any plot, but it's very torturesome. There are so many triggers discovering things in that one book. You can tell that Oren is essentially kind of settling for her life circumstance there, but I am hoping that throughout the rest of the series, she comes into power, she comes into her own, and she becomes strong and capable enough to stand up against King Midas. I really don't know much more about the series beside what I experienced in book 1, but I hear great things about the rest of the series. Gold, I reckon, is the last book in the series. If it gets extended, I don't know what to do, because I initially waited until Gold came out so that I could kind of read books 2 and 5 all in a row and experience the series essentially almost all in one hit. But if that is not the case, then I will have to reread in the lead up to the final book, but I'm pretty sure Gold is the final book that has been slated for the series. I don't have any expectations for Gold, really. I feel like a lot of people do. Everyone's probably looking forward to the ending of the series at this point. I'm hoping that the entire series impresses me. I'm anticipating it because I just want to read all these books essentially in one hit. I just want a good binge read at the end of the day. And the final most anticipated release that I put on this list is Courting the Countess by Lyssa Kay Adams. Courting the Countess was the first book that the Bromance Book Club read in the Bromance Book Club series. And Lyssa Kay Adams is doing the author thing where she takes a book from her series and she writes the entire book herself. It's gonna be like a Rainbow Rowell, Simon Snow situation, except Courting the Countess is Lyssa Kay Adams' work. Lyssa Kay Adams essentially wrote this Regency romance into the first Bromance Book Club book, and it was the book that Gavin, the main protagonist of the first book, he essentially read it to improve his relationship with his wife. And I am so looking forward to experiencing the entire novel from start to finish, because we did get passages of it in the Bromance Book Club, the first book, and I love it when we do get passages from the books that they read. Courting the Countess was a very fascinating one. And personally, I have barely read any Regency romances. I've barely experienced Regency romances. I mean, Bridgerton is probably the closest thing I've experienced to anything similar to that kind of historical romance. So I am hoping that maybe Courting the Countess, even though it's kind of a meta situation, it's a book that is real in a fictional world. I mean, it's going to be real in our world eventually as well. I'm hoping that this book will kind of help me transition into historical romance eventually. I feel nervous to get into historical romance, but I'm kind of hoping that Lyssa Kay Adams will help me get there, because Lyssa Kay Adams is very much a comfort author for me. I've only read the Bromance Book Club series from them, all 5 books so far, so I'm really hoping reading something else from them in their signature writing style will kind of help me transition into historical romance eventually. So I guess it's gonna be it for this video today, book lovers. If you happen to stay to the end of the video, leave me the pink heart emoji with the sparkles. And if you happen to enjoy this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet already. Join the amazing community of book lovers. And also, I have social medias. I'm at GSwizzleBooks on Twitter and Instagram, and I'm also Goodreads. That's www.goodreads.com/GSwizzle. And finally, I'm at TikTok. I'm at GSwizzle on TikTok if you want to follow me there for some bookish content. I love you, book lovers, and I will see you later. Peace.
Started out with half and I flipped it in a double. Started out with half and I flipped it in a double.